Warhammer 40K Space Marine 2 has been a long time coming, and whether you're an old fan or a newcomer to the Space Marine franchise, there's plenty of information to take in. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, 10 things you need to know about Warhammer 40K Space Marine 2. Starting off at number 10, you do not need to have played the first game. It's been 13 years since the original. That's practically a lifetime, especially in video games. So, while this game is a true sequel to the Relic Entertainment developed original, you don't actually need to have played it to jump into this game. The Warhammer 40K universe, which this game is set in, is equal parts vast and ridiculous, but this game would be an easy entry point into the setting. Really, as long as you're cool with guys in big power armor fighting aliens, you're probably going to be fine here. What makes this game and its predecessor so unique compared to the other first-person shooters is the Space Marines themselves. You play as a mountain of armor who dwarfs over other normal-sized humans, and rather than cower behind cover, the only way to play is to be as aggressive as possible. There's ranged combat with a variety of weapons, along with close-range melee weapons. All the takedown animations in the trailers might give you the impression it's basically a Gears of War clone where you can chainsaw bad guys who get too close, but the actual rhythm of the gameplay is very different. You couldn't even take cover in this game if you tried, and the only way to restore lost armor is to perform a melee takedown. At least, that's how it worked in the original. This game is actually adding some new mechanics into the mix. Along with the single-player campaign mode and the returning 6v6 multiplayer, this game's also having a co-op mode where 3 players team up to complete missions separate from the campaign, with its own mechanics and systems at play. With so many games these days either going all in on multiplayer or single player, seeing a game with 3 distinct pillars is actually really refreshing for me. Now, if you're completely clueless about the premise or know nothing about Warhammer 40K, here's a quick rundown. In Space Marine 2, you play as Captain Titus, who does return from the first game, and you're a Space Marine, the elite soldiers of the unfathomably large, galaxy-spanning Empire. In this world, humanity is besieged on all sides by aliens and traitors influenced by the demonic powers of chaos. So yeah, it's a setting where pretty much anything goes. Magic and technology and psychic powers all get mixed together. Death is a constant presence in this world, where the regular soldiers have a life expectancy of 15 hours. Seriously, that's actually a thing, and everyone is always at war with everyone else. As a setting, it's perfect for video games with crazy gothic visuals, and the many and varied monsters you can fight, along with the epic scale of everything, just make it a super interesting place to go and, of course, kill things in. In this one, your primary enemy is the Tyranids, a ravenous race of alien creatures who have the singular goal of consuming everything in their way. But with some of the most authentically grand visuals I've seen in one of these types of games. And also even the first game. Like, it's kind of a drab and empty looking game, and compared to it, the vistas in Space Marine 2 are absolutely astounding. The guys behind the game, Focus Interactive, haven't always made the best games in the past, but from everything I've read, it seems like most people have actually gotten their hands on the game, have walked away pretty impressed, so that's a good sign. All that preamble out of the way, let's talk mechanics. At number 9, there's more depth to the combat than you might assume. I'm not going to spend all of my time comparing Space Marine 2 to the original. I loved it, but I imagine most interested in the sequel probably haven't played it or haven't gone back to it in the decade plus since it came out. So any comparisons would not be massively helpful, I think. But I do just want to point out how this game is actually a lot more mechanically complex compared to the first. It's got the same extremely heavy movement and absurdly powerful arsenal of weapons, but now close-range combat is quite a bit more complex. There's a standard attack button that you can hold for heavy attacks, a dodge, and, new to this game, but not every other action game that has come out in the last 5 years, a parry. I'm not dissing on parries. It's a good addition, I think. But yes, Space Marines are indeed getting in on that parry action, and it should actually make close-range encounters feel more tactical and challenging, I think. According to people who have previewed the game, trying to get the parry timing right in the chaos of battle when you're getting swarmed by hundreds of little aliens can be a challenge. There's also a roll to escape, and of course there are takedowns, which can be performed when you stun an enemy. Like I said above, these attacks restore your armor, but there are actually a few new ways in the game to heal yourself. If you parry an enemy, then follow up with a pistol shot, you can restore armor. And when you take health damage, you can actually get some back by damaging enemies in a short time frame, a little like Bloodborne's rally mechanic. One other thing in this game, it has consumable med kits, so you do have a few options on how to play the game now. You're not totally reliant on getting melee kills anymore to keep your armor full. In general, though, playing aggressively seems pretty essential in Space Marine 2. The first game felt so unique back when it came out because the gameplay actually felt really different compared to other third-person shooters, and it looks like Space Marine 2 is serious about retaining the things that make the original so fun. The new parry system sounds a little stiff, at least that's what some people who have played the preview build said, so hopefully that gets tightened up a little bit before the game comes out, but I think all signs are pointing to it being a good addition. At number 8, more on Operations, the co-op mode. An entirely different mode from the campaign is Operations, the co-op mode. Once you're done with the story, this is probably going to be the game's bread and butter. In it, you and 2 other friends, so 3 players total, pick from one of 6 classes with different skills and abilities, and you take on missions that emphasize cooperation and replayability. Each mission rewards you with experience to unlock additional perks, whether that be for your loadout or weapon upgrades, and if you're like the Army Painter and other Warhammer games, you can really go nuts here with the customization options. You're not stuck playing the generic Smurfs, the Ultramarines either. It looks like Space Marine 2 is going to give players a whole selection of customization options, so they can play as like whatever Space Marine chapter they want. It looks like there's going to be a separate track for different customization options too, and it seems like there's a whole lot to pick from. So why 3 players rather than 4? Apparently the developers thought that 4 fully kitted out lore-accurate Space Marines would be too powerful for the co-op. Anybody I've talked to who's played the tabletop game says that's not the case, but I'd also say a tabletop game and an action shooter are not the same thing, and 3 players honestly looks fine. I think it looks like a fun mode, and 3 players seems good to me, so 2 friends, not hard to fill up the roster, you know? But if you haven't got any, you still want to play these unique levels, you can. They have co-op with bots. Apparently, they aren't that great, and it seems odd that there isn't a matchmaking, but I don't know. We'll see. Don't know what they're going to do post-launch. Maybe they'll add matchmaking, but the bots are there if you need them to play. At number 7, there's 6 varied character classes for both co-op and multiplayer. Let's get a little more in-depth about the character classes you can play in the 2 multiplayer modes. The 6 classes that will be at launch are Assault, Bulwark, Heavy, Sniper, Tactical, and Vanguard. Each class has its own loadout and special equipment. For example, the Assault has a heavy bolt pistol, a thunderhammer, and a jump pack, which looks pretty much the same as it did in the first game, which is great news because that thing was awesome. The jump pack lets you rocket into the air and then come crashing down on swarms of enemies, and the heavy 2-handed thunderhammer is extremely powerful at the expense of not being able to use the primary gun, but there's definitely going to be situations where that makes plenty of sense to do. The other classes are mostly what you'd expect. Bulwark has a giant shield, Heavy has a heavy bolter, can generate a shield around him, the Sniper can turn invisible, the usual class-based stuff. The Tactical Marine, the store's standard guy, uses a regular old bolt gun and has some kind of scanning power called the Auspex Scan. Well, the final class, the Vanguard, comes equipped with a grapnel launcher that allows you to quickly zip around the battlefield. Each player can only be one of each class, so you don't just load up as 3 assaults and go nuts. But it seems like everyone is going to end up fairly overpowered, so hopefully the classes end up being as fun as they appear in the previews. At number 6 is the story mode / campaign. Rather than picking a class in the story mode, you play as a single character, Captain Titus from the first game. It's been 100 years since the events of the original. Space Marines can apparently live a very long time, and Titus is still viewed with suspicion by his brothers because of the chaos shenanigans he got up to previously. According to the official FAQ, the story mode is going to be around 10 to 12 hours long, which puts it on par with the first game in terms of length, possibly a little longer, but a realistic estimate for what this looks like, a set-piece heavy, very story-driven experience. Rather than just being one continuous thing, this time after every level you return to the battle barge, the Space Marine ship, and set up for the next thing, which includes being able to customize your loadout, that type of stuff. Doesn't seem like there's any RPG-type systems, though, which is good because it really doesn't need it. At number 5 is the multiplayer mode. The third pillar of Space Marine 2 is the Versus mode called Eternal War. Here, 2 teams of 6 face off in a variety of different game modes for supremacy. It's Space Marines versus Chaos Space Marines, and all 6 classes from co-op can be used here, with each team able to use 2 of each class for balance reasons. Multiplayer modes sound like the standard stuff. There's Annihilation Deathmatch, a Seize Ground mode, something called Capture and Control. Sounds like the usual Call of Duty arena shooter stuff, but with a little Gears multiplayer energy sprinkled in. I don't know how the multiplayer is going to play out. I remember loving it back in Space Marine 1. It was really entertaining, but having the classes in both co-op and multiplayer versus Makes me wonder how balanced they're going to be. Co-op is about fighting large swarms of enemies, while PvP is about fighting a small number of tough opponents. What's good for one mode may not be for the other, so hopefully they've taken the time to get things balanced in a sensible way before kicking things off. Multiplayer is also going to have its own separate experience track too, with weapon unlocks and the usual multiplayer progression tracks, but the mode itself seems like some good old-fashioned throwback fun, which I definitely like. That they're including PvP here is unexpected, period. I'm interested in giving it a shot, even if it ends up not having a lot of longevity. I am glad it's an option at all, though. At number 4 is the weapons. Where are the guns? Give me the guns! I don't know why I turned into Seinfeld for that. Warhammer 40K has a dizzying variety of weapons. It's impossible for a game to feature everything superfans might want to see, but it sounds like Space Marine 2 is going to have a pretty solid collection of weapons that should hopefully keep firefights varied and interesting. There's the usual stuff, like the many variations of the iconic bolt gun. There's also the melt-a-gun, which fires a short-range burst of superheated plasma that evaporates anything it comes in contact with. The plasma incinerator, which is similar to something like the plasma gun in, like, Doom, if it had a drastically lower rate of fire but did much higher damage. A new weapon is the Melta rifle, essentially a super powerful laser sniper rifle, and the Multi-Melta, a super powered assault cannon that slows you down to use but does devastating and continuous damage. Appropriate for a game where you're fighting swarms of aliens, there's a proper flamethrower this time, the Pyroblaster, and it looks pretty satisfying to use against huge swarms of enemies that you encounter here. For melee weapons, it looks like everything from the first game is back, like the absurdly huge combat knife, the chain sword, which is a sword that's also a chainsaw, the power sword, the two-handed thunder hammer, and finally we're getting a proper power fist in one of these games. It's a Warhammer classic that's dumb as hell. It's a big metal fist you wear over your regular old armored fist, and it's great. The Storm Shield looks like a unique addition. It protects you from long-range fire and can be used with other melee weapons, and also seems to generate a shield around you that protects your teammates. All in all, it looks like there's going to be a solid roster of weapons. I just hope there's a few more left field picks hidden in the final game, because there's so many oddball weapons in this setting. I'd love to get to use some of them in a game like this. And number 3 are the enemies. If the trailers are anything to go by, the enemies in this game, the Tyranids, are looking pretty dang impressive. The game employs some kind of swarm technology in order to give direction to these massive gathers of enemies, which is made even more impressive because it's not just showing off in the far background. This system also directs the enemies during combat. From everything I've seen, it seems like the way enemies will work in this game is that there's the little guys, the termigrants, who are cannon fodder, and then there's special enemies starting with warriors. These are bigger guys who take a lot more firepower to take down. From the trailers, I've seen a decent amount of Tyranid units like the gargoyles, the zoanthropes, the lictors, and the camouflex, who's a big guy who blocks your attacks unless you hit him with a heavy melee attack. There's probably a hive tyrant in there somewhere. They're essentially the alien queen of the faction, but I mean, there's going to be one of those guys as a boss somewhere in the game. One mechanic you might have noticed from the trailers is that there's sometimes enemies with black eyes. These are special powered-up enemies who have more health and can do more damage than normal. Along with the Tyranids, there's the Chaos Marines. In this game, it looks like we're getting the Thousand Suns chapter, the Egypt-themed guys. They don't look like the generic Chaos Marines, which is a refreshing change of pace, and hopefully that means we get some unique demons too, rather than the same old bloodletters they normally default to in Warhammer games. I'm not sure what else is in the game, but personally I'd like to see some Gene Stealers, if only so we could get some Gene Stealer cult guys, having more human-sized enemies who have guns, but aren't full-blown bad guy Marines. That would add some variety to things, but I'm just spitballing here. As far as I know, it's just going to be Tyranids and Chaos. Moving on to number 2, no microtransactions, kind of. Space Marine has both a co-op mode and multiplayer, so it seems like a no-brainer this would be full of microtransactions, but according to an official FAQ on Steam, there will be none. There's no in-game store, no in-game currency or purchases, and all the gameplay and content and features, all that stuff, it's going to be free. That is great, but they do go on to say that there will be DLC, and it will be cosmetic only, so actually the game does have microtransactions, but only kind of. Listen, I'll take out-of-game cosmetic packs over an in-game store any day. So you can unlock cosmetics in the game, but there will also be cosmetic DLC you can buy, which makes me worried they're going to sell us some of the more popular looks and cosmetics and leave the boring stuff in the game. Pre-release impressions suggests it's not going to be a huge issue. It sounds like there's going to be a whole lot of ways you can customize your dude in-game, but until I actually get into the game and check, I just don't know if the DLC is going to be fine or if they'll go overboard with it. I mean, companies like profit, you know? That said, it's perhaps the least egregious version of this I can think of, and one that I'm honestly not too bothered by, even if they do put the quote-unquote good stuff behind a paywall. It's kind of whatever. I probably won't buy it, honestly, because who cares? And finally, at number 1, I'm going to hit you with the release date and everything else you need to know in that area. Warhammer 40K Space Marine 2 is coming to Steam, Xbox Series, and PlayStation 5 on September 9th, 2024. This is another one of those games that's doing that dumb advanced access thing where if you buy the gold edition, you get early access. In this game, you can start playing on September 5th, which is 4 days early, and it only costs an extra $30. Bit less than $10 a day. $89.99 total for the privilege. I'll leave it up to you guys to decide if it's worth it or not. I'm not saying it can't be, but On PC, performance is still an open question. The trailers look amazing. Like, it looks like it's going to be the best looking Warhammer game yet, with a really epic scale worthy of the 40K universe label. But with those good looks comes some pretty steep system requirements. The devs recommend 16 gigabytes of RAM, an RTX 3070 with an Intel Core i7, and you're still only getting 60 FPS at high def using the Ultra preset. Solid state drive and Windows 10 required for all versions too, so you're going to need a pretty modern PC to play this thing. The graphics do look pretty eye-popping, so it's understandable, but still, it is steep. But that's all I've got for you today. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. So click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications. And as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time right here on gameranx.